Okay, so as the next part of the Southern Nature Art Exhibition's interview series, I'm speaking to Emma Abel, who is a maker of mosaics. So would you like to introduce yourself, Emma?
Yeah, thanks, Megan. So my name's Emma, and I've been making mosaics for over 20 years. I started by making just sort of patterns and realized that it was such fun working with glass and ceramic, and just sort of piecing patterns together, and then you've got quite a sort of tactile piece of art. I've raised a family as well in that 20 years, so I've had a bit of a break, and then I came back to it about 8 years ago, and realized I wanted to make it a profession. So I started mosaicing wildlife because it's very meaningful, and it's also challenging to put expression into the face and the eyes, and show a tuft of fur or a ruffled feather. How do you do that when you're working with hard materials instead of a paintbrush? So it's a completely different technique, obviously. And how do you blend colors? Because you can't just do that in a palette. So, I love the challenge of that. And I think in the last few years, I've realized that, there are many wildlife that are endangered. Critically endangered wildlife, there are 200 to 300 birds, for instance, on the list which the IUCN produces. And then with mammals, it's about the same again. So I decided to specialise in the critically endangered species because there's still hope for them, and I can give them a small platform through my work. So when I mosaic a bird or animal, it goes on social media, and hopefully people will see it there and think about it and choose to perhaps donate to the relevant charity, and that helps the species to survive. I wanted to make my mix meaningful, so I've just chosen to sort of go down that path, and it's really fun, actually. I mean, I have every image that I do has different challenges. So I'll just pick my laptop up. If you can see behind me, so up on the wall there, there's a Visayan warty pig, and then he's from the Philippines, and then there's a colobus monkey in the middle, and then there's a willow tit from Wiltshire. So they are all endangered in different ways. I like to support my local charities. So the Wiltshire Wildlife Trust gets donations from me when I do a local bird and animal. So things like the willow tit are vulnerable, or the hedgehog, or the tree sparrow. They need our help as well. So it's nice to be able to support locally too.
Yeah, definitely. That's really important.
Yeah.
Taking it back to the beginning, why did you choose mosaic? Was it something that always fascinated you, or just something that you tried out once and went, oh, this is what I want to do? Or how did it start?
I did try it out, actually, because I had a really stressful job. I used to work in the classical music industry.
Oh, wow.
And I needed a break.
Mm-hmm.
So I thought, I need to do an evening course. What shall I do? And this one just popped up, and I thought, well, mosaics, I've always loved art, at school. So I thought, I'll try that and see what that's like. Wow. And I was hooked from the word go. I think it's just the tactile nature of it. And again, I'm quite interested in patterns, so that's perfect for mosaicing. Yeah. And there are so many different ways of mosaicing as well, so there's quite a lot to learn.
Yeah. So did you build up through lots of workshops, or was it you did this evening class and then you just had a go yourself, or how did it transpire into your
well, that was a 6-week course, that first one. And then I realized I wanted to do more. So then I found a couple of weekend courses with, there's a mosaic master down in Kent called Martin Cheek. And he's brilliant. He taught me all my sort of basic skills and showed me how there are different techniques you can use to create different effects. And then I did another course with Oliver Budd, who's another mosaic master, also in Kent. And between the two of them, I realized that it was something that I absolutely loved. And they gave me the opportunity to make some mosaics to put in books that they were producing. So that was really interesting too, because we worked together to sort of produce the artwork and the design. So that's how I started. And then after that, I started doing some workshops for children in the holidays. That was years later, trying to work around my young family. Realized that teaching was quite fun as well. So now I divide my time between mosaic commissions of these critically endangered species and giving workshops here in my studio. And we work on small images that the students would like to make. So it doesn't have to be wildlife. It can be anything you like. Yeah.
Yeah. And so how did you end up choosing wildlife? Was that something you were always fascinated in anyway, and then you decided to combine, the art and the animal? Was that how it happened, or was it part of your courses or something that you started producing animal mosaics? Or because for me, I don't know when I was younger, I think we definitely tried it at school, but we always did patterns. It was kind of making those like green tiles and that kind of thing, and that kind of vibe, but we never tried, making figures or things. So how did that, become about?
I think, I was making tabletops and doing patterns on trays, and they were useful. That's useful art. But it wasn't satisfying enough. So then I started doing the odd portrait. And that was hugely challenging, because you realize you've got to put the expression in the face. You've got to put the light coming on the forehead or the shadow under the eyes. I've done a huge 7-foot mural of St. Matthew. And that's, that took me a very long time. And it was, really, really challenging, because it's not just the face, it's the clothes and the folds and the cloak that you've got to try and portray. But after I'd done that, I thought, well, I want to do something that's really sort of meaningful and, sort of contribute somehow to wildlife, really. I think I've just been interested generally in wildlife. And I was looking into the IUCN, which, made me realize how much, monkeys, giraffes, you name it, all these, the rhinos, they need help. And I thought, well, how about if I start mosaicing these kind of animals and use my website, Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, to show people that you can create beautiful art in wildlife mosaics and give them a bit of a platform. So it just seemed the right thing to do.
Yeah. Brilliant. So how does the process happen then? So do you sketch beforehand, or is it just you see where it goes? And I guess you said you have to think about creating bird feathers or shadow and light and mixing colors and things. How do you go about, I guess, all of these challenges of I'm not saying the painting is simple, but you can't mix things, like you can't mix glass together, if that makes it so yes. What's your process of creating a piece?
Well, I sketch. All my sketches are freehand. So I start by researching the species so that I know a little bit about it and how it's struggling and what its environment is like. And then once I've done that, I'll have a collection of photos and I'll create my own image from those. So obviously nothing's being copied and I'm making my drawing on the board. And then from there, I start with the eyes. So I make my eyes and my beaks and the claws from fused glass here in the studio. And I decided to do that because then it can be really unique and individual. So rather than just taking a tile that someone else has produced, which is probably going to be flat, that's going to make a really boring eye because it's just going to be flat and there's no personality there. So I make my own. So I'll show you a few. I've got a mixture of all sorts of eyes. Don't know if you can see that.
Yes, yeah.
So that's, a huge eye. And then we have different colors.
Oh wow.
I mean, I have all sorts and I've bagged them up. So in here, I've got my snow leopard eyes, ready for when I make my snow leopard, which is not yet. They're not critically endangered actually. So that's a really good thing.
Yes, of course.
I don't actually, it's not urgent that I make them. I try to sort of prioritize the ones that really need help,
Yes.
I've got owl eyes. I've got all sorts. I've got little tiny sort of beady eyes for birds.
Yeah.
And then the claws and things at the bottom. So that's how I start. And I make the eye first so that I can then draw on the personality. So I'm constantly referring back to the eye when I'm doing the face. So because that's what we look at, isn't it, when we're looking at a piece of art. So that's almost the most important bit. And it's the hardest bit too, because there's nothing else on the board apart from the drawing. So, you're starting with a blank sheet basically. So then I do the face and work my way down through the body and I do the background last.
Okay.
So with mosaics, there are 7 different andamentos. An andamento is the flow of the mosaic. So if you think of a Roman mosaic, it flows if you think of a brick wall, for instance, the flow there is the rows, the brick wall flow. And Roman mosaics have that kind of flow. I'll show you some more examples. If you can see up there.
Yeah.
You see up there?
Yeah.
There's a little face up there. So that's kind of the Roman style.
Yeah.
So the andamento is the flow of the mosaic, and you can just see on this list there are lots of different ways to cut pieces of mosaic to create a different look. So with each bird or animal, I have to make that choice really. How's it going to look? And I like them to look quite realistic most of the time. So I'll show you 1 or 2 pieces. So you can sort of see there,
Yeah.
putting similar colours next to each other and blending them and into sort of pointed feather shapes. And then there's another bird there. And then my rhino up at the top is different again.
Blending is so beautiful. It could be a painting.
Yes. I experiment with different materials. So marble is a great one for a soft colour. And then stained glass is brilliant because there are so many different hues and tones. And some of the stained glass sheets have a sort of a grain running through them. So that gives the idea of sort of texture.
Yes. Yeah.
And slate I work with as well. And it's not good for everything. It depends what I'm working on. So recently I made a mosaic of a wild ox. which is called a kukri, and they're only found in Cambodia, critically endangered. But if you think of an ox, you know, they've got this really square face and quite sort of bony structure. So the slate worked quite well. I'll just show you, it's right here. Can you see that there? It works really well for something like that. You know, just trying to sort of put colours together with similar materials.
So do you so you said cutting the glass, I can imagine, or the pieces for the mosaic, is that I can imagine that would be quite a long process. How does it work for you? How do you do that?
I've got various cutting tools.
Yeah.
So I've got slate cutters, and I've got nippers and wheeled cutters that all do different jobs. So some cut straight lines, some just nip corners and circles. Yeah, it depends on the nature of the material. So something like granite is really hard to cut. So I'll use a different technique for that. You know, I can cut big floor ceramic tiles with different devices. So yeah, it does take time to do. So a mosaic that's only maybe 25 centimeters square would probably take me about 30 hours to make, something like that.
Wow.
So if I'm doing one that's more like 60 centimeters by 70, that's going to be about 60 hours to make, because it is very time consuming, and it's all about so you've got your design, and then you're choosing your colors and your textures, so all your different materials, and you might have 5 different materials you're working with, and then you have to piece them together. So marble, slate, ceramic, glass. I've got about 3 different types of glass. So you have to decide what goes with what, and getting, of course, the textures flowing nicely into each other. That all takes time. And then the cutting and the shaping. So I might work for 5 hours, and that would be it for that day, because it's quite hard on your hands otherwise. It's not sort of, it doesn't make your hands hurt, but it's just quite intense work because you're cutting and shaping all the time. So obviously if I was holding a paintbrush, it would probably be a much more gentler process. But, you know, I'm actually physically cutting things. So it's a little bit more physical.
Yeah. So do you have to plan the shapes of the pieces you're cutting, or is it what then the pieces appear and then you decide where they're being placed, or is it you cut the pieces specifically?
Cut the pieces specifically.
Oh wow. Okay.
Most of the time. So I've got a technique for cutting a feather. So if I start with a square tile, I don't know if I've got any here. I mean, these tiles, for instance, 2 centimeters square, I will cut that in a certain way to get a feather. Yeah. And it'll be, you know, a fairly stylized look, but the overall effect when you finished, it seems to really work. I want feathers to look pointed. Yeah. So, and they will have to go in the same way. So the feathers are all pointing and sort of shaping into each other. So yeah, you have to kind of get in the zone, really. Yeah. Whereas when you're doing a pattern, it's not meaningful in the same way. It's very stylized. It's just a pattern. And you're thinking about shapes, but you're not thinking about a personality there.
Yes, yeah.
That's why I enjoy it so much, because it's an animal, it's a bird that is trying to survive, you know.
Yeah. So have animals always been important to you in your life?
I've always had animals around me.
Right.
But I mean, I haven't always been, you know, fanatical about wildlife. It's kind of a growing thing. I'm finding now with all the research I'm doing, I'm becoming quite interested in zoology. and the way the bone structure is, and because I want to make it really look like what it is. So I've got quite a few reference books now, and I find myself looking at bone structure because I want to make sure that the angle of the leg is right. So I should have probably said at the beginning, I'm self-taught mainly.
Wow.
You know, I haven't got an art degree or anything like that. So I kind of, you know, have to use reference books or maybe a YouTube video or something and learn myself. And then I just create here in my studio and just do what I think is the best way.
So obviously you've mentioned the endangered animals as a focus of your mosaics. So why did you want that specific what's the word, subject or subject matter?
I think because they're so needy, you know, there are different sort of sections of endangered species. So if they're vulnerable, they don't need so much help, but they are on the spectrum. And if they're endangered a bit more, threatened a bit more, but critically endangered, is you know, they are on the verge of extinction. There are probably only 250 left in the world. So, you know,
Crazy.
it's crazy, but it's exciting as well, but also very urgent that they need help. And so I'm an artist, so I figure that's the only way I can do it, really. And the Southern Nature Art Exhibition is brilliant because it gives me a platform to show my work, and somebody might be looking at, you know, the Visayan warty pig behind me, and learning about that, and thinking, gosh, you know, I'm going to donate to the Talarak Foundation, which is a charity that supports them in the Philippines, and help them with their work there. Because these wildlife charities are not just the actual environment for the animals, they're working with the communities on the ground there, so that the communities realise that these animals have value and they shouldn't just be hunted, they need to be protected and they are part of their heritage. So it's, I think educating the local community is a really important part of things. It's not just providing rangers to stop poaching, if we're talking about rhinos. You know, if the locals realise the value, then they can protect their own animals. So I'm trying to work more with wildlife charities really through my art, and you know, donating every time I make a sale. I'm donating to the relevant charity and trying to establish a link there with them, because then it really means something. You know, you feel like you're trying to do a little bit of good in a small way. I just wish I could go out there and actually see the real things.
Yeah, that would be incredible.
I know, wouldn't it be amazing?
Watching all the nature documentaries you see on the television, it's just incredible.
Yeah.
Especially the colours and everything so vibrant. You think, oh wow, that'd be an amazing opportunity, especially when you're supporting these charities and these communities. It would be incredible to go there yourself.
Yeah. Yes, I know. But some of them are obviously very inaccessible.
Yeah.
So, you know, we're so lucky really that we can, you know, go on the internet and see these beautiful animals and poor birds without having to sort of trek into the middle of a jungle. But, I mean, I love the idea of making my own sketch from real life. I'm going to move the laptop again, show you something else. It's like, my studio is like a zoo. It's just full of all these animals. So this one here,
yeah.
So that's called a tenkyle, which is a tree kangaroo. And you know, I'd never heard of them before, but there are, you know, quite a few different species of tree kangaroo in the Philippine area, you know, and they're all endangered to different degrees. But it was cute to do because it was like a bear, chunky like a bear. This one, it's a hornbill, a Walden's hornbill. So they have this fantastic bill, and you know, the plumage is quite iridescent. So I had quite a lot of fun with about 6 different blacks and iridescent greens to make the back of his wings really stand out.
Yeah. Yeah. No.
And this one here, let's just stand back. It's called a Cirra curassow, and that is a South American parrot. It's a game bird, actually, a game bird, and it's about 1 meter high. It's
Oh,
huge,
wow.
and they are, I think they're really special. I discovered this coffee company that grows all its coffee in the shade of huge sort of forest canopies, so that birds like the Cirra curassow can survive.
Wow.
That bird is critically endangered, but the communities are helping it to survive because they're not cutting down the forest canopy to make way for cultivation, you know. So it's quite exciting when you make these discoveries.
Yeah. So is education, obviously education there is important, but do you enjoy also doing
Yeah,
mosaic so you can educate people in the UK as well? So when people come and see your work at exhibitions or see your social media, is it
yeah,
important that there's
yeah.
education here?
Really helping to spread the word. Yes. And, you know, when you look into these very local charities, so when I first make an animal or a bird, then I'm finding a charity at that point before I've started the work so that I can build a relationship with them. So it's really interesting to discover these local charities. Some of them are tiny, you know, and they're on the ground just supporting the very local wildlife, you know, and they're so grateful. If you say you're going to just sort of, you're going to, you know, mention and tag them on Instagram, and you know, that's giving them exposure too. So we sort of help each other,
Yeah,
you
so
know.
the power of social media and spoken word, or the spreading of the word amongst, especially for small charities or not independent charities,
Yeah.
you know, less mainstream ones that are so specific. It's great, definitely.
Funnily enough, um, I have more of a connection with these smaller charities than I do with the bigger ones, because I think the bigger ones are so big, they sort of don't have time to respond.
Yeah.
But the smaller ones tend to respond almost immediately, which is fabulous. You know, and then you just build up that relationship with them.
Yeah. So do you, if say it was a one, I can't think of an appropriate term, but say if they were looking after one species, one charity, would you create more than one and mention them more than once, or would you focus on one animal and then move to another animal, or you get what I mean?
I tend to just do it an animal, a mammal, and
Yeah.
then I go do a bird, and then I alternate just
Right.
to give me a little bit of variety. But there seem to be hotspot areas around the world, like Indonesia and the Philippines do have quite a few critically endangered species. So I've gone back to those areas a few times. And also in Africa, of course, there are lots. So there are quite a few primates that are endangered. So I've got a relationship with Tusk. So anything I make, any mosaic I make of an African animal, I will donate to Tusk. Um, so that works really well. And then if it's in South America, you know, charities there, loads of birds in South America, for instance, you know, and they're all different, you know. So as a mosaicist, it's wonderful because I can choose different materials depending on what it is. I mean, something like the hornbill I showed you with the red bill, you know, that's really fun to do because you want lots of texture in there to make it look really sort of solid and prominent, you know. So I think it's much more fun actually than painting and drawing. Not, I can't actually paint at all. I can draw, but I can't paint because you can create that sort of 3D effect, you know, with materials that are different thicknesses.
So do you say you alternate between, you know, a mammal or a bird? Do you have a preference, or do you like them both, or what's your favorite as well? Which has been your favorite piece?
It's too hard to. I don't think I know, because the more I do, the more sort of enthusiastic I get. Actually, you know, I recently did a northern white rhino, because you probably know there are only 2 left in the world. And, you know, it was quite poignant mosaicing that. It was the one I showed you up on the shelf there. And they are disappearing fast. So I really wanted to sort of show that in a very transparent stained glass effect, that it was kind of disappearing into the board. But I really enjoyed making that because it's so in need, you know, and trying to portray the sort of the heaviness of the rhino and chunkiness of it and the power, you know. And then, but recently, you know, I made a giraffe head, and of course those animals are so elegant, aren't they? And they almost look delicate because they have really long legs. So you want a completely different effect. And I used marble for that, mostly marble, because it's got those lovely soft browny orange hues, which kind of works. So each one's different, and the monkeys have such personality. So as I said, you know, it's the challenge of bringing that out really and trying to sort of show that. Last year I did a pygmy raccoon in water, so you couldn't actually see its feet, but trying to show the flow of the water and make it look very sort of fluid and soft against the raccoon, you know, was a nice challenge as well. They're all different. And also the raccoon had a really bushy tail.
Right.
So making it look soft and fluffy, you know. I've got lots of tiles to choose from here, so it's quite fun. And I was very lucky. I was runner-up for the Artist Award in a global art competition for that. So that really was exciting.
I was, oh, sorry, I was going to ask you about your awards and things that you've won and how that makes you feel, and how, especially when you're trying to work for a good cause as well, is it really important to you to get that exposure as well from the awards?
It's important for the animal. You know, I feel like I'm just sort of a vehicle, really. You know, I'm trying, the whole reason for doing this is to give prominence to the wildlife that are endangered. So if I am lucky enough to receive an award, I mean, it's giving that pygmy raccoon so much publicity because the photo was everywhere, you know, and I'm just thrilled about that because I'd never heard of it before. And it lives on this tiny little island off the coast of Mexico called Cozumel Island. And, you know, they're seriously endangered because they're developing the island, you know, they're building roads, they're threatening its habitat, and its forest areas are being fragmented because housing developments are going through, you know, the poor little things. So for me to get that, I was just runner-up, so I didn't actually get the main award, but even so, the exposure was just brilliant. And you know, if more people see my work because of that, then more people are going to know about these species. So it's brilliant.
Yeah. So is that one of your proudest moments? What would be your proudest moment of all of this?
It was quite a proud moment when I made my first mosaic. And when I'd finished grouting it, which was very difficult because I chose really awkward materials to work with because I was so new to it. When I'd finished grouting it, that was a real achievement, and I realized then I wanted to do a lot more. Yes, I've the first time I made a mosaic to go outside, that's a completely different method, different materials, different technique. That was also very rewarding. But when I made this pygmy raccoon and I got this runner-up award, that was lovely. It was really exciting. Yeah. I mean, I love doing exhibitions, and I also really like demonstrating because a lot of people have this view of mosaics as being Roman. If you say that word to them, they just think Roman. And obviously the palette of colours for the Romans was limited to about 5 or 6. You know, lots of black, white neutrals and the terracotta colour they used to use. So there's so much more you can do these days. If you look at my animals, I'm using every colour under the sun. You know, I think of my mosaics as more fine art because I'm trying to put the detail in with hard materials rather than a paintbrush. So I'm trying to achieve that same amount of detail and with a vast colour palette. So it's a really lovely sort of exciting thing to do.
So with the teaching of workshops, is that why you want to spread awareness as well of the animals you're speaking about, but also of mosaic, so that people can educate themselves more than just Roman mosaics that perhaps you learn about in school? Is that important to you as you're teaching, or?
Yes, I started teaching about 4 years ago, and because I just wanted to share the skill really, because I was sitting in my studio making these things, loving it, but then I thought it would be quite fun to just do that with other people, and someone can come to me for a day, and on a 20 centimetre square board, which isn't very big, in a day they can create their own little mosaic masterpiece and have a whole load of fun with me just directing them, helping them, and showing them the easiest way to cut the tiles. And then they've got this little lovely little mosaic to take home. And often people come and make a gift for a family member or their husband or something. And so they're thinking about that person while they're making the mosaic. And because it takes all day, it's quite therapeutic as well. Because you can't just dash it off in 5 minutes. You really have to think about what you're doing. When you're doing a workshop, you have to go through about 6 or 7 different stages of mosaic making so that it makes sense. So there is a structure to it. Like you would start in the center of the board, for instance. And you might have a border or you might not have a border. There are lots of different ways of looking at it. So while they're in my studio, they've got all my wildlife mosaics around them, and often people do ask about certain ones on the wall. You know, I've got one I haven't shown you yet, but it looks like a rabbit, but it's actually it's a hare that only lives in the Karoo Desert of South Africa. But people ask about that because, you know, it could be a local hare, but actually it's a critically endangered one only from that area. So, you know, that they find that interesting. It's something a bit different.
Yeah, definitely. So you're going to be running a workshop with Southern Nature Art Exhibition. What can people expect from this workshop if they come?
Yeah, well, I shall be turning up with all the lots and lots of different coloured tiles, glass and ceramic and glass gems. And people can make a floral design or a pattern or some wildlife if they want to, or even put numbers on the board if they want to do a house sign, for instance. So they can actually choose whatever they like, but I'll also have lots of templates if they need some ideas. And those will be designs that work really easily on board, and we can just pop the drawing on and get started straight away. So it's, as I said, very therapeutic because you're piecing pieces together and you see your design emerging through the day. And then at the end of the day, they will have finished, but they just need to wait 24 hours before they can grout. So I will give a grouting demonstration, which is terribly easy. And then they will know what they need to do the following morning when the glue has set. And then it's finished. So it's great fun, actually. I'm looking forward to it. I mean, I give workshops here every week, so it's quite nice actually to go somewhere else and do the same thing. Yeah.
In your studio, is it like one-on-one, and then is it nice to have a bigger group, or when you're going to be with us as well?
Well, I'm not sure how many are going to be in my group at Southern Nature. I think probably people are still making bookings. My studio is not that big, so I tend to have probably 5 maximum because of the space.
Yeah.
And I go around each one and make sure they're happy with what they're doing and guide them. And we have a little chat at the beginning, which takes just a couple of minutes, and I've got examples of work to show them, and design ideas, and also obviously I provide all the tools. So you just need to come with an open mind and ready to have a bit of fun.
Well, it sounds fun, definitely, no doubt. So why are you taking part in the Southern Nature art exhibition?
It's all about wildlife, so that's the perfect platform for me. And I also love meeting the other artists because we're all in the same frame of mind. And it's nice to meet some of the passers-by who want to come and just look at different artworks. Last time we had the exhibition, I was able to sit in one of the rooms and make a mosaic, and that was I was actually doing a crocodile at that point, and people were quite interested to see how you actually do it, because as I said, a lot of people have this vision of very, very old mosaics and they can't quite imagine what a contemporary mosaic would look like. So it's nice to be able to show how a mosaic is made. Really nice. And then people might decide to come and do a workshop after that and have a go themselves, because everyone can do it. It's it's quite a sort of open art form. Yeah.
So what artwork will we be seeing? Do you know which pieces are coming to the exhibition?
Yes, I'm going to bring my riverine hare from South Africa and my Hirola antelope from Kenya-Somalia borders, and one more I haven't quite decided yet.
It's a surprise for us. We have to come and see and find out.
That's right. They'll probably be all displayed together. But really looking forward to seeing what other artists are doing too.
And I suppose after a year of lockdown as well, it'd be nice to see everyone again and see the art.
Really nice. We're all looking forward to getting out and sort of showing more of our work, but also sort of meeting people who are coming to the exhibition, because it's a new venue at Cams Hill School, isn't it?
Yes, yes.
Yeah. So that'd be nice.
Mm.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to it actually. Yeah.
Oh, amazing. So how can people find out more information about you or see more of your pieces? Do you have websites and social media links?
Yes, so my website is abelmosaics.com, because my surname is Abel. And my Instagram handle is @abelmosaics. And I'm also on LinkedIn and Facebook. So it's quite easy to get hold of me. And if you make an inquiry, I'll just get straight back to you on either of those social media platforms. So, yes.
Oh, perfect. Well, thank you so much for your time. It's been so interesting. It's been so wonderful seeing all those pictures, and the mosaics are fantastic. Like, honestly, I thought they were paintings. They're so detailed and honestly, like, so.
Oh, thank you.
The flow is amazing. I'm in awe, to be honest. I wish I could do that, but clearly, as you can say, I could come and have a go myself.
Well, you definitely could.
Yeah.
Mosaics in a workshop, it's quite a simple design so that you can actually achieve it in a day. But it usually gives people a little bit of a taste. And then most people have to say, come back and do another one, because they catch the bug.
It must spread quite fast, I'm sure. It looks amazing. It's incredible.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for your time, and I look forward to seeing you at the end of August for the exhibition.
Yeah, lovely. Okay, thanks so much.